Top 4, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, Ben Kiriakou, Kukukachu. That's right, trainers. We're back here for our second top 4 match at the Sunday Larnacan mid-season showdown. When I started talking, like most times I started talking, I have no idea where it's going to go. So I'm quite pleased with how that one ended up.
Just like the rest of us, Charles. We have never have any idea where it's going to go. I thought I was meant to be the cuckoo one, but maybe we need to switch nicknames there.
I don't know.
Ben Kiriakou, merry by name, merry by nature.
Well, I don't know. It did bring us a lot of mirth as well, so there was still merriment brought by that. But anyway, things are really heating up here. We have another showdown between the Netherlands and Belgium, just like we showcased just now in our first top 4 match. Nick from the Netherlands on the left of your screen there, and that is Kai Elst from Belgium on the right, on the home turf. There's Machamp and Indeed Beware, 2 fighting types, ready to welcome us into the dojo, and it certainly will be a dojo on stream right now. Looking at Kai's team, you've got the Entei as well as the Iron Bundle. Now, Entei, Pokemon that we saw quite a bit at the beginning of Regulation Set F, not so much recently. Iron Bundle, not really at all in Regulation Set F.
I feel like we haven't really seen Iron Bundle properly
for
since,
a while.
What, Regulation Set C?
C, maybe, yeah.
Maybe a little bit of D as well.
Maybe a little.
Of course, we didn't see as much
Principally
Regulation
C, I'd say, yeah.
D as we did see, but it hasn't been here for a minute. So good to see that coming back and doing pretty well. Of course, we know all of the support options that it has available to it with its booster energy, boosting speed and icy wind. It tends to do what Fluttermane likes to do in Regulation Set F more commonly. But going over onto Nick's side, we've got the Tornadus Incarnate Fluttermane, Ogerpon Half Frame, Raging Bolt, Urshifu Single Strike, carrying the Choice Band. And I've seen a lot of Choice Band Urshifu Single Strikes in Larnacan. And of course, Landorus carrying the Life Orb. One thing that we were talking about before we came on, having a look at these team sheets, was the differences and similarities between these Raging Bolts. One being Kai's side being Terra Fairy, and dropping the Thunderbolt in favor of Electro Web, whereas Nick playing a little bit more offensively, using Terra Electric to take away the Dragon typing, but keeping that Thunderbolt coverage, not having instead any speed control.
A little bit more offensive, but both holding the Assault Vest, so there is a ceiling, albeit Raging Bolt a very tall Pokemon, as to how high the attack can go on this Raging Bolt, the special attack thrown out by Thunderbolts, Thunderclaps, Dragon Meteors, and indeed Snarl, in order to reduce the special offensive output of the Pokemon over on Kai's side of the field. Although, looking at that team, that's only the Fluttermane and the Iron Bundle, so cannot wait to see how these two teams match up into each other. More of a balanced team that Nick is running, and something a little bit different brought by Kai. But right now, that's an Urshifu and a Raging Bolt on the field for Kai, Tornadus and Raging Bolt for Nick.
So 2 Assault Vest Raging Bolts staring each other down through the clouds, and I think Tornadus is above the clouds as well. There between all 3 of these Pokemon, but there's definitely the speed control advantage on Nick's side of the field. Whether he can convert that into an advantage or not remains to be seen, as both the Raging Bolt can offer Electro Web support and sort of bring Tornadus and Raging Bolt speed back down to Earth, but also that Urshifu is carrying the Focus Sash, so gets a lot of opportunities to attack over and over again.
Yeah, well, potentially, yes, twice, maybe not over and over and over again, but we'll see how long it's on the field for. So, Terra Fairy Raging Bolt coming out for Kai. Big Thunderclap, good call, into the Urshifu, and an Air Slash, immediately neutralizing that threat. Really bold to go for the Thunderclap in the face of what could have been a Sucker Punch there, not falling for those mind games one bit, and immediately Urshifu removed from the field, and now the Electro Web coming out, dropping the speed of the Raging Bolt. Of course, Tornadus for Nick holding the Covert Cloak, so not receiving that speed drop. Tornadus can still set up a Tailwind in a future turn.
Over and over again, by which I mean to say never. Here with the Urshifu actually going down on that turn, and the Tornadus not getting a speed drop whatsoever could be a real advantage there for Nick, but it does also beg the question, when your Pokemon next to the Tornadus has had its speed dropped and could get its speed dropped yet again, do you even go for the Tailwind? Do you just keep the pressure on with Air Splash? I think the answer to that is dependent on what Pokemon comes in, and it is Bad Dog, the Entei, the choice banned variant coming in there and offering a lot of offensive pressure. Terra Normal Extreme Speed, doing what Dragonite likes to do in all of the formats since Chien-Pao was released in Regulation Set B, putting a lot of damage on the field. But since it's going to be faster than the Raging Bolt on Nick's side of the field, maybe it decides to go on the offensive with its ground type coverage in Stomping Tantrum.
Yeah, something that Raging Bolt certainly has to fear, but instead it's going to be the Tornadus going for the Terra, getting that Ghost Crown on its head, looking all spectral, keeping itself safe from an Extreme Speed, for example. Tailwind will be coming out now in order to give the speed advantage over to Nick's side of the field for hopefully the remainder of the battle, depending on how much longer Kai is able to stall it out. There is that super effective Stomping Tantrum, Thunderbolt connecting down from the heavens into the Entei. That's going to be a miss onto the Raging Bolt for the Electro Web. Tornadus, of course, no longer taking super effective damage from the Electro Web, being that Terra Ghost. So Nick really putting a lot of eggs into the Tornadus basket, or should I say, cloud.
But now the Entei has locked itself into Stomping Tantrum. It can't change up its moves to Extreme Speed. A wise Terra Ghost making sure that the Tornadus was again able to act in this turn, and also making itself not take super effective damage from the Electro Web coming out from Kai's Raging Bolt. But at the same time, that means that the Terra option has been used up for a defensive turn when you didn't get the benefit of it. So advantage Kai there.
Bad Dog runs back to the kennel as Ogerpon joins the fray. Now this Sunny Day is interesting, activating the Photosynthesis first on the opposing Raging Bolt. Of course, hasn't had any Electro Web speed drops, both special attack booster energy variants on these Raging Bolt. Thunderclap fails into what was presumably the Ogerpon there, or a double Thunderclap fail because Sunny Day is not a damaging move as well. So a bit of a neutral turn there, and Ogerpon gets in for free.
You do get to prepare the Ogerpon's Ivy Cudgel doing a little bit less damage, but with Raging Bolt on Nick's side of the field, maintaining its Dragon typing, it's going to be able to take those Ivy Cudgels anyway. You're kind of a little bit worried about what sort of damaging moves Raging Bolt on Kai's side is going to be able to dish out next. It spent its time using Electro Web, but now it still has the offensive capability to go a little bit more aggressively led and orientated here. So we'll have to see how they react to this in this turn.
Taunt in a future turn is going to prevent the Ogerpon from going from spiky shields, but protecting on this particular turn. Electro Web is going to be taking out the Tornadus before it can taunt that Ogerpon. So that is down and out, and the speed of this Raging Bolt on Nick's side really, really dwindling now. So the early advantage went over to Nick, taking out the Urshifu, but now with two Pokemon in the back, one of which is that Landorus. That, of course, threatens Raging Bolt before or after terrestrializing into the Fairy type with its ground and poison type coverage that can be boosted by its poison Terra type.
Such a tough Pokemon for Kai to be able to deal with here. You want to be able to leverage the Entei much more, but because of Entei being naturally just that little bit slower than Landorus Incarnate, it's a really important piece of the puzzle. Now, you have got the opportunity here, if you're Kai, to go for those follow me's and be able to protect your Raging Bolt, which is weak to those poison type moves, but you could also just opt for trying to protect it itself. The Assault Vest, though, allowing it to hang on as a Draco Meteor replies down into the Landorus. It's a one-hit knockout.
One-hit knockout onto the Landorus. They're really benefiting from that Photosynthesis boost in the sun. And now Thunderbolt responding into the Raging Bolt to secure the knockout there. So down to two Pokemon apiece. It's going to be Ogerpon, Wellspring, and Entei over on Kai's side of the field, and Raging Bolt alongside, I believe it was the Fluttermane in the back for Nick. Now that's going to be benefiting from the Photosynthesis boost in the sun as well. So we're really winding back the clocks here, trainers, going back to the past as Nick tries to write their own future.
Bad Dog coming back onto the field. That's the Entei joining, and difficult decisions to be made here because the Entei can lock itself into an Extreme Speed. The Raging Bolt on Nick's side cannot protect itself because it's holding the Assault Vest, but if you go for the Extreme Speed, that means you can't do any damage to the Fluttermane. All the Terra choices have been used up, I believe, on both trainers' side.
I'm trying to take, no, it has, yes. Tornadus' Terra Ghost.
Tornadus Terra
over
Ghost,
on
yeah,
Nick's
thank you
side,
very much. And so, yeah, there's no Terra option for the Fluttermane to go for that would become then susceptible to a extreme speed from the Entei. So, but if you don't do that, then maybe you get knocked out by a Shadow Ball. So it's a really tough call for both of these trainers to make here.
Well, first, it will be the extreme speed going off by Entei. Really bold call, given that it can no longer hit the Fluttermane. So now Kai is going to be putting a lot of focus onto the Ogerpon to try and deal with it, albeit in the sun. It does have the grass-type move of choice being Horn Leech, so not as effective as something like a Wood Hammer. This Entei is now just a sitting duck on the field, and of course the Fluttermane over on Nick's side of the field holding the choice back, so it's locked into the Dazzling Gleam too. So really fine margins right here. Ogerpon, oh my goodness, that's a lot of damage, and it looks like the Ogerpon is not going to be able to knock out this Fluttermane in one hit, barring any kind of critical hits. Let's see, there's a Horn Leech. It's going to recover a lot of health as well. It could be coming down to the wire, but that could just hang on actually.
It could just hang on, but there we go. Yeah,
okay,
sun,
yeah.
I was about to say the sun is either fading this turn or it's going to fade the next turn, and Ogerpon can go for the spiky shield there. So Kai doing really well to protect that Ogerpon long enough for the...
Oh, that was close. Oh my goodness.
Single target.
A little bit too close to the comfort, and that's Ivy Cudgel, and it's going to secure the knockout onto the Fluttermane. Ogerpon hanging on in the tiniest of margins there in order to secure the game for Kai. And that looked like it was in Nick's favour for so long, but Kai was able to turn the tables.
Turn the tables, yeah. I mean, just sort of slightly spin the tables rather than turn them completely, because that was so close and it could have definitely gone either way, right down to the wire. A great play from Kai being able to just commit to the extreme speed, knowing that Raging Bolt was actually the thing that you needed to remove the extra Thunderclap damage, or the extra Thunderbolt damage really would have been so detrimental to that end game. Perhaps a Thunderclap would have even been able to knock out the Entei before it was even able to move, especially alongside a Dazzling Gleam. So yeah, really liked the way that Kai identified that end game. And also, we've been talking about the Ogerpon grass type move of choice.
Yeah.
If that was a Wood Hammer, maybe it knocks out, but maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then the Fluttermane definitely would have picked up the knockout with that second Dazzling Gleam, even without the sun. So, yeah, there's a lot of decisions to be made, both in the team building that you have, but also then applying it to the end game positions that you find yourself in.
And what an endgame it was, my goodness. The sun stalled out perfectly there by Kai, and also Horn Leech just recovering enough damage. The photosynthesis having been dwindled on the Fluttermane, and it really could have gone the other way so easily, but Kai identifying the win condition there and heading into game two. Again, Nick was playing so well. We had the Raging Bolts facing off against each other, and in order to neutralize the threats coming out from Kai's side of the field, I mean, the Entei really was a very valuable Pokemon to have. Certainly Landorus is an important Pokemon for Nick to be bringing in order to deal with the Entei, as well as the Raging Bolt, so good pre or post Terra. But what switches might Kai make here? Well, Fluttermane and Raging Bolt hitting the field.
Fluttermane, the adaptation for Kai there, and Fluttermane coming out from Nick too. So the Sunny Day potentially benefiting 3 Pokemon on the field, but it's more likely that Tornadus is just going to opt for the speed control. Unlike in the last game where it wasn't quite as impactful, where Raging Bolt next to Tornadus both isn't the fastest Pokemon and was susceptible to Electro Webs coming out from Raging Bolt on Kai's side. At this time, Fluttermane won't go fast to lots of damage.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got that Sunny Day option as well, but then you're boosting all the Pokemon on the field, including your opponents. So it could be a really bold call to make, but it's something that Nick is going to want to do at some point in this game. That is Fluttermane going to the back for Kai. So the Pokemon joining the field will be Entei, and then even then, the Sunny Day is going to boost up the power of a Sacred Fire that could be coming out from that Pokemon. But it's time to Terra.
Time to Terra into the Fairy type. Regardless of which side of the field it's going in on, and it is going to be Fluttermane on Nick's side, going for the Terra Fairy, boosting up the damage. That makes me think that a Sunny Day is going to be waiting in the wings to clear up the clouds and make sure that that photosynthesis is boosting up that Fluttermane's damage. One of my favorite combinations. Choice Specs, Terra Fairy, in the sun, Photosynthesis boosted, Sunny, Moonblast, in fact.
Yeah, exactly,
do
yeah.
so much damage.
And there's no knockoff that can come out from Kai's side of the field as well. So those choice specs are sticking around. Here comes the photosynthesis boosts. That is becoming the special attack. So this Fluttermane going all in. Of course, we know that the Raging Bolt over on Kai's side of the field is going to get that special attack boost as well. Here comes an absolutely monumental Moonblast connecting down into the Raging Bolt, holding the Assault Vest. It's down to about a fifth of its health as Electro Web is opted for by Kai. Huge damage onto the Tornadus and getting that speed drop onto just the Fluttermane, because once again, Tornadus is wearing a sneaky invisibility covert cloak.
But now that Fluttermane has terrored into a pure fairy type, lost its ghost typing and lost the immunity that did so well for it in game 1 to an extreme speed, well, it's very, very much susceptible. Now, Kai has committed the Terra to the Raging Bolt. That means the Terra normal can't come out from the Entei and boost up the damage. Maybe it needs that to be able to get the extreme speed knockout on the Fluttermane, but it's not going to be trying this turn. Instead, just knocking out the Tornadus before it goes for the Tailwind, because the Fluttermane had already terrored itself.
Run like the wind, says Kai to the bad dog Entei, and giving Tornadus a taste of its own bleak wind medicine as the extreme speed is able to knock it out before it can act. And that is Raging Bolt going down, along with it Kai's Terra option. So Fluttermane remaining on the field, both trainers down to 3 Pokemon here. And here comes another Pokemon that loves to benefit from the sun. It is that Hearthflame Mask Ogerpon. Don't know why it's looking so grumpy. It's in a great position.
It really, really is. And yeah, seeing the sort of combination of what can happen here, I'm wondering whether or not, there we go, special attack heightening from the Fluttermane coming in. That Ogerpon doesn't have the opportunity on Nick's side to redirect an extreme speed with a follow me. So yeah, Entei really is doing a lot of work in this position. Extreme speed coming out there, but launching out into the Ogerpon, trying to make sure that it's not going to be taking too much damage, but a Dazzling Gleam, easy enough to knock out the Fluttermane. It's Kai's Fluttermane that acts first. That's how it's been trained to be, even with both getting a special attack boost. Ivy Cudgel, they're coming, connecting with the Fluttermane. Doesn't even need the Terra to be able to knock out this Fluttermane in one.
That Fluttermane has been cooked by that Fire-type Ivy Cudgel. Here comes Ogerpon coming out over on Kai's side of the field, of course being the Wellspring variant, and there is Landorus. There's not even a Raging Bolt anymore in this matchup, but it's threatening huge damage onto both of the slots. Over on Kai's side of the field, a Sludge Bomb would be super effective into Ogerpon. A Earth Power would be super effective into the Entei. Of course, Entei now locked into the extreme speed. You can easily pick off the Ogerpon, though it could go for that spiky shield. Entei can't protect either, so it's really got a target on its back here. You can protect the Ogerpon and secure the knockout on the Entei. But then, of course, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to an Ivy Cudgel from the Ogerpon Wellspring. Yeah. But with the sun, is that still in the sky, or has the sun faded now? Because that would be reducing the damage output.
What I'm wondering is whether or not this extreme speed can two-hit KO the Landorus, because you have got the Follow Me on the Ogerpon on Kai's side of the field, and so, yeah, it really does come down to those damage calculations there. Getting very, very close. Maybe or maybe not able to. Either way, an Ivy Cudgel coming out from Ogerpon Wellspring to Ogerpon Half Flame and an Earth Power. Nick calling it absolutely correctly, getting the Earth Power into the Entei, knocking it out in one, and setting himself up to 2v1 this Ogerpon in the sun.
Really interesting decision there to actually go for the Ivy Cudgel into the Ogerpon rather than the extreme speed, freeing up Nick's side of the field to act. Now it's time for Kai to take a little bit of reflection time, working out the game plan potentially heading into game 3. The sun's still in the sky, but it will probably be fading on at this very turn, so the Ivy Cudgels won't be boosted so much over on Nick's side of the field, but still you've got the Sludge Bomb there as well, and the Terra has been spent. So here he goes. How is this Ogerpon going to be able to deal with these threats? It's down to about a third of its health. Here comes the responding Ivy Cudgel onto the Landorus, and it's down and out. So seems like it's the faster Ogerpon over on Nick's side. Got some spiky shield mind games, perhaps.
Maybe not. I mean, maybe they're trained to be the same speed. They're both outspeeding the Landorus there,
okay.
which means that they could be trained to be as fast as they possibly can be, or at least they're in the same small window of speed here that's above Landorus and up to the fastest they can be trained. And so, yeah, this could come down to a decision between these two trainers. And it's the half-flame Ogerpon that is going to be victorious in that regard.
Congratulations to Nick. So we're heading to a game 3, trainers, between Kai and Nick. Belgium versus the Netherlands here in Larnaken, and so well adapted by Nick there. I feel like the crucial turn was protecting the Ogerpon, and the Ivy Cudgel was going into that slot instead of the Landorus, because then there just weren't enough resources there in the end game for Kai to be able to come back.
It's a tough call to be making, but I think it made sense for the spiky shield to go off Nick with the Ogerpon, especially at risk of getting hit with an extreme speed as well. It doesn't matter which one of those two things land into an Ogerpon on just about 13 hit points or something sort of similar. Either one of those hits would have been able to easily dispatch it. But let's go into game 3 here with these two trainers, because this is going to decide who is going to meet Joshua in the finals of the Larnaken mid-season showdown. And what are you thinking? What are you thinking adaptations for either of these players going into game 3, Charlie?
Well, the sun actually, I mean, it's absolutely huge in this matchup. That's something that both trainers have to consider, how it's going to work for both of them. I think it did come down to speed, the way these two Ogerpons reacted in terms of their speed training. There is the Iron Bundle over on Kai's side of the field that could go for the Icy Wind, and you do also have the Electro Web, though, with the Raging Bolt. I think Landorus is a crucial bring, and then it's how do you neutralize that Landorus? Well, if the sun goes up, then Ogerpon isn't doing as much damage with its Ivy Cudgel, so again, I'm looking at the Iron Bundle, could go for a Freeze Dry, force out a Terror at least from that Landorus, and then it's going to be vulnerable to a Stomping Tantrum that could come out from the Entei. So, yeah, I would be interested, and yeah, it could well be the Iron Bundle coming out here, but we'll have to see.
I like the call. I like the call. Let's see if Kai also likes the call. Well, it's not going to be in the leads at the very least. Fluttermane and Raging Bolt, but it's the double genies coming out from Tornadus and Landorus on Nick's side of the field.
Yeah, so you've got, once again, staring into the past with the Fluttermane and Raging Bolt. As the Raging Bolt and Fluttermane stare up into the sky with the Tornadus and Landorus. Of course, Landorus completely immune to the electric-type moves that Raging Bolt can dish out, but the Tornadus is somewhat more vulnerable. Landorus clearly a crucial piece of that puzzle, and it threatens a lot of damage into either of the slots here. Once again, there are the mind games as to whether to set up the Sunny Day that, in this situation, are only benefiting your opponent. So, potentially, Nick is going to want to conserve that Tornadus for later on in the game if they have their own Protosynthesis boosting Pokemon from the past in the back, or indeed a Fire-type Ogerpon.
But these trainers really quite carefully considering their moves in this turn. This is game 3 after all. This takes us to the finals. You want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to consider every option, and the option that Kai has gone for is Raging Bolt going for the Terror and making sure that it's not taking super effective damage from the Landorus. But Landorus on Nick's side protecting itself this turn, scouting out what Kai is going to be going for, and now is able to go for a Sludge Bomb without worrying about whether or not Kai is going to go for the Terror. Dazzling Gleam doing more than 50% to the Tornadus, and a Draco Meteor going into the Landorus. So Kai playing quite offensively, but Nick getting the better end.
Yeah, now you've forced out the Terror over on the opponent's side of the field, so not only does that mean the Landorus can more safely lock into a move of its own, but you have the option of going for a Terror later on in the game. So this is a game all about gleaning the information that you can heading into the later stages of it, and now that is crucial information for Nick to be able to play with. And of course, if you go for the Terror poison onto the Landorus, as Nick seems to be doing, you are then making yourself vulnerable to electric type moves, but who cares about that if you're going to be able to knock out the Raging Bolt on this very turn. It is carrying the Assault Vest, but of course Landorus, sheer force is the ability, holding the Life Orb, is able to dish out huge damage as it has been doing throughout Regulation Set F. Here comes the Air Slash, followed up by a Sludge Bomb, directed into the Raging Bolt. Is it going to be enough damage? No, it's not. The Raging Bolt hangs on.
and it's going to be taking that attack very, very well. Dazzling Gleam, dispatching of the Tornadus, doing a little bit of chip damage to now the poison type Landorus that resist it. Draco.
Oh, is it going to hit? Yes, it is.
And go down onto this Landorus. We know from previous games that it's going to do massive damage, and the Landorus has been knocked out.
Raging Bolt summoning down that Draco Meteor from the heavens as high as that neck of his cranes up into the sky. Now down to the final two Pokemon. There's no longer an option to set up Sunny Day on the field. Tornadus is down, even though both of the Pokemon for Nick would benefit from it. But then again, once more, so would Kai's Pokemon here. Now the Fluttermane for Nick, carrying the Choice Specs as well. And the Ogerpon here, you spend your Terra now on the Landorus, so that option is no longer there. Of course, Raging Bolt over on Kai's side of the field, really on low health. It may well all come down to the two Pokemon that Kai has in the back.
Well, the two Pokemon that they have in the front right now cannot protect themselves at all from any damage-dealing moves that Nick wants to go for, and especially since Nick is in Tailwind, he definitely needs to use that Tailwind to his advantage while he has it. Only a turn or two left, and so yeah, Kai wanting to make sure that he's not going down this turn with at least the Fluttermane getting that switch out, but oh, Nick calling the wrong slot, going for the Power Gem into the Raging Bolt, but the Entei came in on the other side instead.
Certainly did, but I like the fact that now Nick is locked into the Power Gem with that Fluttermane, given that the Entei's on the field. Look at how much damage that Woodhammer did. That is a critical hit over to the Entei on Kai's side. Huge, even though it was resisted. And now what is the final Pokemon for Kai lurking in the back? Is Power Gem going to be as effective against that? Well, it's going to be Urshifu, so no, Power Gem is going to be dealing resisted damage into the Urshifu single strike. Urshifu is a Pokemon that can threaten huge offense onto the field. It's holding the Focus Sash, so you have to target it with two moves in order to knock it out.
But what you've got to do is target those two moves while Extreme Speed on this Entei is looming away. And of course, let's not forget that we saw that Kai's Fluttermane was likely the faster of the two Fluttermanes in Game 2, I believe it was, as we can see Power Gem going into the not picking up the KO here.
Ivy Cudgel allowing the Urshifu actually to survive, and the Fluttermane also survives in the face of the Wicked Blow. Sacred Fire is going to be taking out the Fluttermane there. Absolutely huge. This Urshifu clearly, even though it's holding the Focus Sash, must have that little bit of bulk investment that it needs in order to try and withstand some attacks, as well as being an offensive monster. And it looks like Nick has realized there's not much they can do in this position. You can't protect in front of an Urshifu, so that's going to be the victory going over to the Belgian Kai Elst. It's going to be Belgium versus Netherlands in the final.
Absolutely. What a showdown that we're going to be able to see. But before we get there, let's talk about that match, because that was a nail biter all the way through. Could have gone either way at any point in the two-game set. Of course, Kai was able to win the first game fairly convincingly, but game two came down to the wire, potentially came down to two Ogerpons being trained very, very similar. Whether they were the same or not, whether they were different, maybe we'll have to find out after this match is concluded. But yeah, Kai managing to win game 3 and do it so well.
Yeah, what a thrilling matchup that we showcased there. Interesting to see neither of these Raging Bolt having access to the Calm Mind setup as well. That's a set that we've seen more prevalently of late in Regulation Set F. Raging Bolt, a key piece of the puzzle, as of course was that Landorus, and I have to call out that Terra Poison from Nick's Landorus there, which actually wasn't able to secure the knockout on the Raging Bolt over on Kai's side of the field. So really going all in on that turn. Unfortunately, it didn't pay off, and that seemed to unfortunately spell potentially the end of Nick in this finals here.
The benefit of the Assault Vest is that you automatically get that special defense boost from what you would get from a Calm Mind, but also you have lots of different tools at your disposal. Instead of having one slot being dedicated to protecting yourself, one slot dedicated to setting up that Calm Mind, and the other two slots having to be those damage dealing moves to be able to, utilize the Calm Mind boost. Instead, you have the Electroweb for the speed control. You have the Draco Meteor when you want to turn things up and go on the defensive. You have the thunderclap when you need to have that priority damage dealing move, and sometimes you have the opportunity where games are a little bit slower. You can slow down the game even further with a snarl.
Yeah, Snarl and Electro Web, really useful moves to have on your Raging Bolt, and so we know that our finals will be Kai versus Joshua. Now, thinking back to Joshua's team, so in Lilligant, Torkoal, Gallade, Indeedee, Hatterene. What's the final per Urshifu, I think? Urshifu Single Strike. And Kai's team, another Urshifu Single Strike, Ogerpon Wellspring, Raging Bolt, Iron Bundle, Fluttermane, and Entei. That's going to be a really fascinating match to see. And Trick Room isn't something that we were dealing with in that particular matchup, but it could well be for Joshua's match, for the fact that Joshua is going to go up against Kai in the final. So I'm fascinated to see how that's going to go.
And I think without further ado, let's get ourselves set up. Let's get into the finals of the Lunarkan Mid-Season Showdown on this wonderful Sunday afternoon. So stay tuned, trainers. We'll be back in just a moment.